this is Lou from Lou's Antiques and Collectibles, and we buy and sell stuff for our two antique booths and our two antique malls here at Plaza Antiques and Maumee Antique Mall. Now for this video, we're going to talk about elegant glassware that was made in the Depression era, and we went to our malls that we're in, and we also went to the Depression Glass Show in Dearborn, Michigan. And we're going to talk about our first pattern here. And this is called American. It's by the Fostoria Glass Company. It was made from 1915 to 1986. Now, elegant glassware was made in the Depression era through the 1950s. Mostly it was hand-worked or acid-etched glassware. And it wasn't the typical dime store stuff or the stuff that they gave away in the grocery store. This was sold mainly in department stores and in like jewelry shops and finer stores that carried china and things like that. So this is the more expensive glassware, but it was made in the Depression era and a little bit beyond the Depression era. Now we covered the a lot of the typical ones that you see, and we also covered a few patterns that were made a little bit later, just because they were focused on at the Depression Glass Show, and you just never see some of these patterns. So I wanted everybody to see these patterns, even though they weren't, quote, Depression era glass, just to know what they are and know that they're elegant glassware, and it was around this area. So we did our other video previous to this, which was Depression glass, and now this one is elegant glassware made in this era and a little bit beyond. So we have lots of examples of the American glassware, and if you go back to my video on some surprise boxes I actually got some of this from my friend Marcia. And this pattern is called Baroque by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1936 to 1966. And this is called Buttercup by Fostoria. And this is called Candlewick by the Imperial Glass Company from 1936 to 1984. Now I wanted to show you some other patterns that were very similar to Candlewick, and here is one of them, and this is actually called Boopy. It's not Candlewick, but people mistake this for it all the time. I see it labeled at antique malls all the time. It's got lines on the bottom. It's much heavier than the Candlewick, which is a much finer glassware, and there's a glass you can see there that's much different. But they have those little round things in the bottom, and people think when they see that it's automatically Candlewick, and it's not always true. In fact, they even remake some stuff that are similar to Candlewick, but it's not the Candlewick. And here's several pieces and a lot of the different colors that it comes in. Here's a nice set of it. Beautiful. There's a little mayonnaise bowl. And another glassware that looks just like it is called, we always call it check glass. I don't know if that's the proper name for it. But these little dishes with the dividers in them, they're not Candlewick. They're called check glass. This is Caprice by the Cambridge. And Canterbury, number 115 by the Duncan Miller Glass Company from 1937 to 1950s. And here's some Cape Cod by the Imperial Glass Company, made from 1932 all the way to 1984. Some of these glassware patterns were made for a very long time, and that's probably why we see so much of it out there. And here's some nice dishes all set up, so you could see the pattern. It's kind of like diamonds with little circles in it, and then the diamond-y on the top, like diamond-y cut on the top. That's how I could tell that it's Cape Cod. But like I said, it was made quite late, up until 1984, so that's probably why we see so much of it out there. Still beautiful glassware. And this is called Caribbean by the Duncan Miller Glass Company from 1936 to 1955. And this is called Colony by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1930s to 1983. This was another one that was made quite late. And we see lots of this. Beautiful pattern, beautiful glassware. A lot of these shots came from the Depression Glass Show, and they had everything there. It was so wonderful to see it all in one place. If you get a chance to go there, definitely come. It's in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, and it's usually in November. We'll put some information on that for you. This is called Corsage by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1935 to 1959. And it's got the little bit of etching on that makes it look kind of fancy. There's a lot of patterns that have this etching, but every one is different. So it's pretty difficult to tell which pattern it is unless you have a book or some pictures in front of you. And this is called Crown Tuscan by the Cambridge Glass Company from 1932 to 1954. I like that color. And here it also is in red. Here's Crow's Feet by Payton City Glass Company. And Daisy by the Fostoria Glass Company. Usually you could tell the elegant because they have all that really small etching on it. Even if you don't know the exact pattern, you'll know that it's typically elegant glassware. That was very popular then. This is Early Colonial Spiral by Duncan Miller Glass Company from 1924 to 1927. And this is Ebony by the Cambridge Glass Company. Elaine by the Cambridge Glass Company, 1934 to 1950s. Fairfax by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1927, and Fairmont by the Fostoria Glass Company. Flame by the Fostoria Glass Company in 1940s. And this is one I have not seen. Probably the first time I've ever seen it was at the Depression Glass Show. They definitely have the most unusual and rare patterns that you just don't see anywhere. This is Flanders by Tiffin Glass Company from the mid-10s to the mid-30s. And this is Heather by the Fostoria Glass Company, 1949 to 1971. And Seascape by the Fostoria Glass Company. Some of these, like I said, were made a little bit later, but I wanted you to see the different patterns because you just don't see these unless you go to this show. This is called Heirloom by the Fostoria Glass Company, and it was made in the 1960s. A little bit later, like I said, than a lot of the typical Depression-era glassware. But because we were at the show, I just wanted you to see it because this stuff is beautiful, and you just don't typically see this. So that way, if you run across it during your travels, you'll know it's something good, and you're going to want to pick it up. Beautiful, and look at all the colors it was made in. So nice. Lots of Fostoria glassware. And if I have the patterns wrong, please feel free to correct me. I'm not an expert by no means of any of these patterns, especially the elegant glassware. That's a little bit tougher for me. I'm better with the Depression glass. And this is Hermitage by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1932 to 1945. And look at that neat, unusual light purple color. Just beautiful. You just don't see that color. And this is called Italian Lace by the Fostoria Glass Company. And some of these I couldn't get the dates on them. They were so rare, it was hard to find any information on them. But I knew they were made in that era because they were at the Depression Glass Show. This is Janice by New Martinsville Glass Company from 1926 to 1944. And this is June by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1928 to 1944. And this particular dealer had a lot of June. It was just gorgeous. This is another one I don't think I've ever seen other than at the Depression Glass Show.
The gravy for that, and those are the demi cups and saucers.
And what was say the other ones
That's
again?
June, Fostoria June,
Okay.
in the blue. That's it's a gravy with liner.
Yes.
They call that the liner.
Okay.
The cordials are on this side in yellow,
Because I want to leave your comments
and plus
in here.
the light comes down.
Oh, yeah, it
and
makes
would
it
bring
beautiful.
a nice picture.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Here's one by the Heisey Glass Company from 1937 to 1939. And here's Lariat by Heisey and Company from the 1940s to 1957. And I do see quite a lot of Lariat around. It must have been real popular, like I said, in our area. Some glasses are popular in different areas than in others. But this is something I see quite frequently. Modernistic by New Martinsville. And Maya by Payton City in the 1930s. This one I don't see very often, especially in the different colors. It was very beautiful. It was so nice to see at that show. This is Navarre by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1937 to 1980. Another one that was made quite late. They stuck with these good patterns for a long time because they probably were very good sellers, I'm sure. And just beautiful. Look at it in light blue. Just gorgeous. And they were all lit up so nicely so you could really see the patterns. So I would encourage you, if you're in this area, to make sure you go to the Depression Glass show because you will not be disappointed. It was something to see. And if you really want to see the different patterns, that's the place to go, especially if you need like a certain piece in a specific pattern that you're trying to complete. This is called Nautilus by the Cambridge Glass Company from 1930s. And this is called Orchid by the Hwy Glass Company from the 1940s to the 1950s. This is Portia by the Cambridge Glass Company from the 1932 to the early 1950s. Far away from my house, it's hard to get here.
Well, we're coming from Illinois. My husband and I were the oldest club member. I mean, the youngest club members in this club. I joined when I was 18.
I joined when I was in my 20s or 30s.
21.
Yeah.
And we're 64 and 67.
Oh, that's awesome. We were in it together. This is Prelude by the Viking Glass Company from 1948 to 1954. And the dealers at the show are very knowledgeable about the different patterns. It was very nice to speak with them and find out more information about the glassware. I used to be in this club years ago, and I did learn a lot when I was in there. And they still have the same club that you can join, especially if you're in the area, obviously. This is called Rose Point by the Cambridge Glass Company. It was made from 1936 to 1953. And there's that really unusual color again. Here it is in clear. And this is another one I've seen quite often in our area. You could tell by the little roses that it has on there. This is a ruby red rocket face by New Martinsville Glass Company in the early 1920s. And this is Sahara by the Hwy Glass Company. And I didn't get a date on some of these, so if you have information on that, please share it with us in the comments. I looked all over and couldn't find the date on some of these pieces of glassware. This is called Sandwich by the Duncan Miller Glass Company from 1924 to 1955. And this is Square by the Cambridge Glass Company, and this was made in the 1950s. This is another one I just included because it was so neat looking. I thought it'd be good information. Teardrop by the Duncan Miller Glass Company, 1936 to 1955. Utopia by Payton City, 1930s. And Versailles by the Fostoria Glass Company from 1928 to 1944. Wisteria by the Fostoria Glass Company, 1931 to 1938. I love that light purple color. It's beautiful. And this is Lou from Lou's Antiques Collectibles saying goodbye, and we'll see you again. Thanks for watching.